Welcome to the New Heights Show on Education. I'm Pamela Clark, founder and director of the New Heights Educational Group, and I'm here with David Smith, the founder of Silicon Valley High School, who has helped us get these podcasts produced and delivered to you.
Yes, Pamela, when we saw the great things that you and your army of volunteers were achieving at New Heights, we wanted to get involved. We're happy to work with you to leverage the internet and make quality education accessible and affordable to everyone, everywhere.
Thank you, David. We appreciate Silicon Valley High School helping us to get these podcasts out to the hundreds of thousands of listeners from all over the world. So I hope you enjoy the show.
In this week's episode, we will discuss education reform on mission.
Hello, everyone. This is Danielle Washington coming to you live from Ms. Buffy Williams' office. We're just sitting around thinking about life and trying to become better people tonight, so check us out. Welcome back. You're on the air with Buffy Williams, and you have been listening to the New Heights Show on Education. We have been discussing the show's purpose on mission.
Good evening. This is your host, Buffy Williams, and you're listening to the New Heights Educational Group, the New Heights Show on Education. Tonight's topic is a look at the Global Education Monitoring Report 2020. A recap on last week's show, we talked about the expanding of financial literacy in K through 12 and how integral it is in the future of our economic literacy for the world. On tonight's episode, we explore the 2020 report looking at global education monitoring, which is a wrap-up of the second roundtable that I had episode the other day, where we talked about with professionals about their experiences from Singapore to the U.S. and India and other places across the world. But let us hear your thoughts. Call us at 917-948-7542 or put your comments in the chat or tag us on social media using the hashtag NHEG. Or as always, you can post your comments on Twitter at Buffy_Williams or on Spreaker, Instagram, or YouTube. But remember that my fellow co-host Erica Hansen's show airs on Thursdays at 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Global Education Monitoring Report 2020 takes a look at a lot of different issues in education globally, and they also look at inclusion and equity, and they look at those, of course, as two separate entities because they are. But one of the important things is that this report is designed to be progress towards a sustainable development of a better educational system, and it targets specific areas. Again, it addresses inclusion in education, and it draws attention to the overall form of how we go about educating our children in K through 12. And it also looks at the background and the ability of these countries to be able to provide a better educational system. And so with that, it's designed to bring awareness to ensure that we have an inclusive and equitable quality of education globally. And there's a global partnership to ensure that, looking at the morale and knowing that it's imperative that we ensure that every child has a right to an appropriate education and a high quality education. But the report also explores the challenges that countries face in educating students with the trying to achieve the same vision globally, with the different aspects of taking into account not all countries have the same resources and the cultural differences within those countries. And so, in achieving the vision and trying to demonstrate a concrete policy on examples from countries around the world and how they manage and tackle the success of their students, and how the differing of maybe just the understanding of what does the word inclusion mean for us. Um, Sometimes there's what does lack of teacher support mean for our country, or absence of data in a particular area, or appropriate infrastructure, and looking at community support and maybe even untargeted finance. So just getting on the same understanding level between the different countries of what these things mean to them is kind of the basis for the report. First, this is what we want to try to achieve, but these are the challenges that we may face in doing that, understanding what aspects of each country, how they feel about education in these particular key areas, and how those things may impact their overall goal. And so they also look at the construct of different laws and policies within these countries, and also looking at the educational inequalities. Also, it talks about the progress of telling the story behind education, and kind of where we've come from, and looking at a new platform where we can kind of explore the different educational profiles. So it also offers an online platform where you can go and look at educational profiles that describe how countries' laws and policies on inclusion in education may be different, and that is going to be a part of the April 2020 report. And then later on, they will have a regional report that looks at a collaborative effort and a deeper look or deeper dive into inclusion in education in Latin America and the Caribbean. That will come out in July and August of this year. And then later on in December, they will have a comparative study and a regional report of Central and Eastern Europe, and then Central Asia. And so if you're interested in looking at the continuation of this particular report, and I should also note that the Global Education Monitoring Report on Inclusion is put out by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So again, that's the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And this is a report that is designed to keep us all abreast of what their global mission is. And Global Education Monitoring is an independent editorial report that offers evidence-based annual reports, and its headquarters is in Paris. So this report monitors the progress towards education, target goals, sustainable development of goals, and it's also adopted by the United Nations members, and its mandate is drawn from the World Education Forum and the Education 2030 framework for action. And so that's their strategic plan and their focus in moving towards their 2030 goals. And so implementation of the national and international strategies help the partners within this global monitoring report that are stated in here kind of have a framework of where they're trying to take education globally, and how can we collaboratively focus on the key topics to achieve these actual goals. And they also have an international advisory board. But some of the leading principles for this 2030 agenda is sustainable development, that comes from the No Child Left Behind, and it aims to ensure that inclusion and equity or equitability. I can't even get my words out tonight. Equitability and quality education promote long-term learning opportunities for all students. And so it also kind of aims to eliminate as much as possible any gender disparities in education, and tries to ensure that all levels of education, vocational, and voluntary and targeted aims of education is provided. And also looking at the safety and nonviolence, or a nonviolent movement towards bettering education, and how can we be more inclusive and effective in our learning environments. And so it's an actual working document, and it's just used to provide a basis for consultation, and stimulate discussion that can elicit a more robust feedback on what the multiple stakeholders need to take into account as education evolves, and the concept of inclusion in education is evolving. So as it relates to um, concerns in inclusive education, this is kind of like a relatively new term. So back in the 60s, we considered the idea of children with disabilities should be, as far as inclusion, should be at that time segregated from their peers, so that they could have healthcare professionals look after their primary needs. But then when we moved on to the 70s, countries started to challenge that approach of the medical approach and children with special needs, and it kind of moved more towards educational systems and human rights, and granting students with disabilities the right to education, the right to be mainstream within the classroom. And then in the late 70s, the principles of inclusion included students with disabilities or going to maybe even special schools, or being integrated into the regular schools. And so there's been this gradual shift in the official language of students with handicaps to students with disabilities. And there has been this global agenda to kind of move that segment of the population forward in a more inclusive way. And so when we're looking at expanding education for all students, instead of focusing on students with special needs or special educational needs, it's more inclusive, that they want to help children from all backgrounds. And so they want it just to be one general focus of all students, and taking into account that all students have, from different backgrounds, have unique characteristics, unique interests, unique abilities, and unique learning needs. And so and that all students have a fundamental right to education. And so they want to look at all aspects of all children rather than separating the children, or labeling them in that particular way. And I also should note that within this particular report, there are over 40 individuals from the particular organizations or the particular countries that were used as a focus group to also offer additional information on this particular topic. And so tonight we are discussing the Global Medical Monitoring Report 2020, and how we look at education from a global aspect. And again, I want to note that